Hi everyone, and welcome to the FWC video about lobster. We're here in the beautiful Florida Keys. We are getting prepped and ready for the upcoming lobster season, which begins tomorrow night at midnight. And I am here with my captain for the day alongside law enforcement. I'm going to pan right on over. And hi sir, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm great, thank you. And what's your name?
I'm Officer Rafter, Jason Rafter with FWC.
Officer Rafter with FWC. Where are we at?
We are, very specifically, we're in Whale Harbor Channel.
Okay.
Right outside Whale Harbor Station where we have our office and keep our vessels here.
Okay, so we're in Whale Harbor Channel. That's that bridge you see in the background, and the channel, of course, is that waterway that's running. Underneath the bridge, you can see some of those standard navigational channel markers, the green sign in the background, the slow speed sign as you're approaching under the bridge. So we're here in Whale Harbor Channel, and we're getting prepped and ready for lobster season. And one of the things that people are listening to us about today in particular is lobster habitat. So let's cover that kind of right up front, because we've got a couple different things of habitat. So this is a great example actually in the Keys of Bayside and Oceanside. So we are which side of US 1?
We are Bayside, just Bayside of US 1. It's in mile marker 84. Outside here where you can see that's straight Oceanside, straight out there in Whale Harbor Channel.
Okay, and if you're new to the Keys or familiar with the Keys, you'll know that that's a lot of times how they reference the locations we're at, Bayside or Oceanside, and then they'll give the mile marker on US 1, which extends to mile marker 0 in Key West. So we're here, and we're actually sitting in an area that is popular for an activity that's specific to nighttime in Monroe County here in the Florida Keys, and that is bully netting. And so we talk a little bit about habitat and where to find lobsters. If you're a bully netter, where are you looking for lobster?
You're going to be looking primarily for on the grass flats in and around this area. All Islamorada, we have a lot of grass flats in this area, a lot of good bully netting activity in this area. The lobster, primarily in the daytime, are kind of hidden in structure. The mangroves, a lot in the mangroves, whatever structure they can find here in the grass flats. And then the solution holes, some grass flats are loaded with solution holes, and they can climb into them, and some are shallow, some are deep. But they primarily stay in there at daytime. At night, the grass flats, they come out to forage on invertebrates and whatever else they can find to eat.
Okay, so bully netting again is kind of what we're talking about real quick, just the habitat of bully netting. And I'm going to pan over here, Whale Harbor Channel, and this area in particular, I've come to the Keys several times on behalf of FWC, and this area and the surrounding area here has always been a popular spot for bully netters based on some of that habitat that Officer Rafter was just explaining, some of the grass flats where they're foraging at night, and some of these mangrove areas that are lining the shoreline. And he talked a little bit about structure too, so I'm going to come back over to Officer Rafter. And we said we're on Bayside. Behind us is the Whale Harbor Channel Bridge, and Oceanside is where the Reef track for Florida is located. So tell me a little bit about habitat over there on Coral's Reef track.
It's a lot different in here. We have the large relief, large coral heads out there on the reef track. Can start from just half a mile out to 5 miles out, depending on where you are along the reef track. You definitely can find lobster and all that, just like you can here. Lobster have as long as they find structure, they really just want to get into, they want to feel protected in the daytime by being enclosed. And then again at night, even on the ocean side, just on the Bayside, is when they come out and to walk around and forage around.
Okay, so people recreating down here for lobster season, we've given you some valuable tips right there. Look for areas of structure where lobster may be during the day, tucked up in. And at night, when you're bully netting, which is specific here in the Florida Keys, because you cannot dive at night here in the Florida Keys. So bully netting is what takes place. And lobster are primarily in grass flat areas for bully netting. And it's a unique way of catching lobster using the bully net. it's a pretty neat setup how people get their boats all set up.
You can't bully net primarily on the ocean side because it's just too deep to do it. You need some shallower water, which you find here where we're at right now. This will be when it gets started. Whale Harbor Channel will be a hot spot for bully netting.
Okay, great tips, great tips. And speaking of structure, I'm actually going to come around here, and Officer Rafter's my captain for the day, but I'm going to show you a t-shirt, and I want to talk a little bit about some of that structure. One of the other focuses of FWC, and something that we're talking to people that are down here recreating for lobster season, and to all our followers, is really about the Florida Reef Tract. If you're not familiar with the Florida Reef Tract, it stretches 360 linear miles from Martin County, which is on the east coast of Florida, all the way through the dry Tortugas. And a couple of tips that we have for recreating on the Coral Reef Tract to all our swimmers, divers, snorkelers would be, number one, please don't touch the coral. It's an important ecosystem. It provides that habitat and structure that Officer Rafter was just talking about. Another thing is, please don't anchor on or near the coral for the same reason. Important habitat, important structure, and more importantly, we get concerned about anchor lines going across the top of the coral reef and breaking off any coral that may be there. So a couple of things specific to some of you all that may be snorkeling or diving would be to please rinse your dive gear. Keep a 5-gallon freshwater bucket on your boat and give that dive gear a rinse before moving on to the next dive spot. And last but equally important would be to use environmentally friendly sunscreen. So those are just some tips from FWC and all our partners that are working on the outbreak of stony coral tissue loss disease. You can learn more at flcoralcrew.com, and we'd love for you to join up on the Coral Crew and get involved with protecting Florida's coral reef. So, Officer Rafter, one of the main reasons that we're talking, of course, is about the lobster season. So people need what to take lobster? What do they need?
You need a license. You need a recreational license.
You need a recreational
Any
license.
season is a recreational season only. It's not a commercial season. And you need to be a licensed harvester.
Okay. You need a fishing license, regular license, recreational license rather, and then you need a lobster stamp endorsement, correct?
That's correct.
Correct? Yep. And, there's different regulations because even though the Florida Keys are very popular for lobster season, they do have some specific bag limits during this particular 2-day harvest that may differ from other areas of the state. So tell me what that is. What's the bag limit here?
It is six per harvest. 6 per licensed harvester.
And that's per day, correct?
That's correct, yep.
So multiple trips, going out in the morning, getting your bag limit, coming back, dropping it off and going back out. We can't do that, right? That's
not legal.
That's not legal.
It's six per person per day.
6 per person per day. And we have a great brochure. I'm going to ask Officer Rafter to grab that. This year, FWC, great catch, by the way. This year, FWC partnered very closely with Monroe County, their tourist development, and we came up with a brand new brochure. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit and take a look at it. So you can see clearly it says Florida Keys Lobster Regulations, and let it go, let it grow, and then it says Florida Keys and Key West at the bottom. This pamphlet right here has got some really, really great information. One of our own FWC's officers who you may be familiar with from some of our social media, Officer Doobie, worked real closely with Monroe County. So tell me what's in that brochure. What can people find when they look at that?
This has all the information you need if you're coming down here for mini season. It has the closed areas, which are very important. Our major closed areas in the Keys are Everglades National Park, which we're looking at right now in front of us. We have John Pennekamp Park, which is also closed in the mini season. That's off of the ocean side of Key Largo. On the reef track, up and down the reef track from Key Largo to Key West, you have SPA areas, SPA, Special Preservation Areas. They are sectioned off tracks with the yellow buoys to delineate them, and those are all no-take areas. There are, up and down the Keys, every city many of the cities have different, also have different prohibited. They also have some other prohibited areas that you can and cannot get into. I'd look into this. Go online or take a look at this brochure to get something more specific as far as the individual city.
Okay,
that was
great.
A mouthful.
No.
Try to spit that out and watch what we're doing.
Yeah, no, and you're doing great, because remember, we are live. Officer Rafter's here on patrol. He's been gracious enough to get me on board and talk a little bit more about lobster. You know, we want you all out there recreating. We want you to do it by the rules, by the possession limit, by the take limit, and helping us, you know, preserve the reef track here and the structure and habitat.
These brochures, I mean, these brochures are available at the marinas, at the dive shops. When you come down, definitely grab one. All the information that you need, the bag limits, the size limits, again, the closed areas up and down the keys from Key Largo to Key West. It's all in here. Shows you how to measure the animal, which is also very important, and any other regulations are all in here.
Perfect. And the brochure, easy to find. And for the next, today is Monday, so for tomorrow as well, we'll be at Divers Direct in Key Largo. They've been a great partner for us through the years with helping us set up our lobster booth. So you can come by there and pick up a brochure. And throughout the Florida Keys, I'm going to pan over here just a little bit, take a look at this beautiful end of the day here. Throughout the Florida Keys, you're going to see those traffic devices that are telling you to go to a website, keyslobsterseason.com. All the information you need is right there on that website. So if you're just joining us, we're here in the Whale Harbor Channel, here in the beautiful Florida Keys. Tonight is the last night before the lobster season begins. And I'm going to pan around here, Whale Harbor Channel in the background, coming back to you, Officer Rafter. So when you talk about when the season begins, clarify that for me. When does the actual mini sports season begin?
12:01 Wednesday morning.
12:01 Wednesday morning. And remember, you can't be diving in the waters in Monroe County. That might be a different regulation if you're located elsewhere in the state, but here in Monroe County, no diving in the waters at night. Be sure you're familiar with that, and just make sure you know the rules. So we've talked about what people need. You need a license. You need that lobster endorsement. Your take limit is 6 lobsters per day. Yep, you need a good lobster gauge, and you can pick those up at dive shops. And we use a certified gauge here at FWC. That's what the officers are given to when they're checking lobsters that are being taken by people recreating for the lobster season. All kinds of great information, as we already mentioned, about how to correctly measure the lobster. We did a Facebook Live on this past Saturday where we actually had the lobster in the gauge, and we gave you a real up-close video. But that brochure we mentioned earlier and the Keys Lobster Season website are equally important sources of information for you.
Also, good gloves.
Oh,
I got to put that out there. Gloves. I see people from time to time try to do lobstering without gloves. They're called spiny lobster. It's for a reason. They can puncture your skin pretty easily. I had one of my young officers, a quick story, not that long ago. He was doing it barehanded, and he got cut up pretty good. And he did treat it, but about 3 or 4 days later, he actually ended up at the hospital.
Yeah.
So it was. They said he didn't get there. He got there just in time.
yeah.
It was. Wear gloves when you're handling these animals.
Absolutely. And you know, the antenna have the spines on them as well as the carapace of the lobster. And you know, there's another thing too you might see during lobster season, which I learned recently by spending time with our scientific staff down here that cover lobster, is that lobsters molt and they lose their carapace several times a year when they're adults, even more times a year when they're very young lobster. But you may see some of those laying on the reef track or wherever you may be recreating as well. So we talked about the coral reef track. We've talked about some habitat, the difference between bully netting and recreating for lobster during the day. And so I have another question for you, Officer Rafter, as I come around here. So obviously, lots of people coming to the Florida Keys, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Lots and lots.
Yes, I've been down here myself for a couple of days now, working with FWC, and I've noticed lots of people coming, lots of boats coming, traveling throughout US 1. So, what are some things that people should be looking out for when they're recreating lobster with this type of large amount of people coming to the area?
They should be looking for all those large amount of people in the area. There are going to be thousands of boats out there, and there'll be thousands of people in the water. And the day and night, and particularly at night when the visibility is less. You don't need to be speeding from one spot to the other. If you're not sure where you're going, stay in between the channel markers. If you don't know the area, if you're not sure of it, take a look at, first of all, slow the boat down. Take a look at your chart, take a look at your GPS, find out where you're going before you run aground. We don't want anybody banging up the seagrass around here. We sure as heck don't want any boating accidents or boating diver accidents. Let's everybody keep your head on the swivel. You don't have to go so fast to get from point A to point B. The lobster will be there. You'll find them. That's boating safety is first and foremost.
Yeah. All important tips. And the other thing that I'll add to that as well is a bit of patience at the boat ramps. For people that live here on the water or they have access to private docks, that's fantastic. But a lot of these people are coming down here and they're using our public boat ramps. So the lines can be long. There can be a lot of traffic. Recognizing that, being patient, and waiting your turn to either unload or load your boat is going to be super important. And just know that you're going to expect to see a lot of people here in the Keys. And I'll throw another message in when it comes to that. A lot of people are down here not only lobstering, but they're having a great time enjoying the beautiful weather in South Florida. So if you're out and you're having a great time and you're spending the day and you're having some adult beverages on the water, always, always, always remember to designate a sober operator. We see that far too often at FWC as a result of boating accidents that happen. So please designate a sober operator as well.
We have a lot of officers in town for this event, and anybody who gets on the water during many seasons should assume that they're going to get stopped by us.
Yep, absolutely. Good tip. So I want to talk a little bit about dive flags as well. So you're required to have a dive flag when?
Whenever you are in the water with mast fin and snorkel, and obviously dive equipment, but mast fin and snorkel, that's when you're required to have a dive flag up.
Okay.
A correct dive flag. You have a 12 by 12. If it's just a personal flag you're dragging behind you, the boat flag is 20 inches by 24 inches. At its highest point, you want to be able to see it 360. Again, there's going to be so many people out here during the 48 hours. Make sure you are protecting yourself best you can with that dive flag. Stay within the boundaries of the dive flag. It's 300 feet when you're on the ocean side. That might be a little far for the mini season. Just stay close to your boat.
All great advice. There's some rules in there that are required and necessary, and there's some common sense aspect that comes with that as well. He's given you the tips. Keep that 360 degree, keep that proper lookout. It's going to be very, very important while you're recreating during this lobster season. Okay, so I think we've covered the things that I wanted to talk about today. Is there anything that I have not covered that you would like to add, Officer Rafter?
I'm sure I'll think about it. I think we've covered it all. This is not just a prop. I always have our regulations, our fishing regulations, our boating safety. This 2021 Let It Go, Let It Grow brochure will stay with me for the both lobster seasons. The periodicals that we have, the literature we have, they're outstanding. Get a copy of them and have them on board with you. And if you see, and you will see FWC patrolling during the mini season. If you have a question, flag us down. We'd be more than happy to help out any way that we can.
Yep, great, and we love to do that. We love to share our knowledge, the rules and regulations, and educate the public on this really fun recreational event that's happening here beginning tomorrow night at 12:01. So that makes it Wednesday morning at 12:01. And with that, I'm going to leave you with just a beautiful view of the Whale Harbor Channel here. The sun is going down. It's going to be setting soon. It's been beautiful weather today. Good luck to you all participating in the lobster sport season, and stay safe.